Morning comes on like a bruise over the Andalusian hills, violet at the edges, gold pressed thin through rows of olive trees. The light does not land. It glides. It skims the frost-paled grass, slides across terraced stone, and comes to rest in a courtyard where a man named Emilio ties soft rope to two animals he calls by name, Santo and Diego. Emilio is a merchant of little note and great habit. He wraps every bundle the same way, twice around, and a knot you can trust. He is not rich, but his life is neat, as if God himself folded it each night and set it on a chair by the bed. He speaks to his mules as though they are partners in a business and witnesses to a private faith. "Good morning, old friends," he says, running a hand along Santo's strong flank and letting his fingers linger at Diego's jaw. We go over the ridge, make the turn by the chapel, trade rice for oil, and come home before the moon is too proud to show her face. Santo stamps once, a sound like a small drum. He's the image you'd put in a book if the book meant to flatter a mule. Shoulders like masonry, a back broad enough for a child to mistake it for a road. His eyes are clear, the brown of coffee that needs no sugar. To look at him is to believe in a certain kind of fairness, the kind that says strength is its own explanation. Diego carries a quieter grammar. He is built for patience, not for show. He wears his years in the folds beside his mouth, and when he breathes, it's with a delicate shudder you might not notice unless you listen close and cared to hear. Today, if you listened, you would hear more. A rasp under the breath. A tremble where there used to be surety. It is nothing that would make a proud animal ask to be spared, but it is something that should make a friend look twice. A thrush in the cypress sings a single note and swallows it, as if it's decided morning needs a pause before it can be trusted. The crows on the wall trade small gossip in the broken dialect of birds. And in the yard, Emilio lifts sacks of rice, bushels of grain, and blocks of salt. His hands move by memory, left then right, Santo then Diego, even then, the old arithmetic of work. The air is so clean it hurts to take it in. That is how days begin when they mean to hold a lesson you will remember after your hair has gone, and your running days have shuffled into a walk. "Are you ready, Diego?" Emilio asks. The mule shifts. He is polite the way the tired learn to be, because the world can be rough on those who use more words than they need. Santo watches. He is a ledger waiting to be tallied, all columns self, all numbers fair, if you are the one who writes them. He tells himself, this is the life and the rule. Carry your part, keep your gait, do not beg. They take the road as if entering a cathedral of light. The path is narrow and made of decisions, some placed by God, some by men who stacked rock until it agreed to be a road. There are places where the edge drops hard into a valley, and the wind climbs up from below to try its luck at pushing travelers back where they came from. At first, it is easy. The land keeps its promises. The slope is friendly, the stones lie still. But soon the road gains a will of its own. It steepens and twists. It forgets you're a creature and treats you like freight. By the time they reach the first switchback, Diego's breath saws at the air. His legs, those gentle machines, tremble as if someone has stolen a hidden screw and replaced it with a prayer. He angles his head toward Santo and speaks the way a brother speaks when he's not trying to be brave anymore. "Brother, would you take one sack?" It isn't drama. It's just a sentence, small and pure. He doesn't ask for the world. He asks for a corner of it. Santo does not look. His eyes stay on the path as if the path has a face that must be respected. Pride enters the scene the way a draft enters an old house. No knock, no apology, only a cold hand at the back of your neck. "Your load is your load," Santo says, even and hard. "You know the rules." We all carry our part. The wind answers for Diego, sliding a chill across his damp flank. He nods once, something like thanks, something like surrender. The world does not split open when a small mercy is refused. It just goes on. And in going on, it becomes the kind of thing that can take a life. They climb. The ridge above them is a profile cut from old iron. The sun throws coins of light against it, and each coin bounces back as a glare that makes you narrow your eyes. Emilio hums a song his father hummed, about wheat and about a god who watches sparrows with an interest that shames us all. Foreshadow rides the air. A pebble twitches under Diego's hoof and does not settle. A crow takes off and circles once, twice, as if counting something the rest of us forgot how to number. The rope between man and mules makes the soft clicking sound ropes make when they're considering what faith feels like. And then the path leans a little more than usual. It happens in inches, not in drama. The kind of lean that seems harmless if you are sure of yourself and fatal if you are not. Diego moves his weight to adjust. The sack shifts, a nudge only, but enough to change the mathematics of balance. The hoof that wanted a stone does not find it. The hoof that should have known hesitates. And in the single breath where hesitation becomes fact, the world makes its decision. Diego slips. Time does not slow. It drops away. The sound of rope singing through leather, the thump of a sack kissing a rock and splitting, a scatter of rice like hailstones, and the long, terrible silence that lives between a body and the gravity that will have it. You do not hear him bray. You only hear the wind, which is a cruel instrument for elegies, and the hard punctuation of sacks finding their end. Emilio lunges for the lead, but there is no lead left to save. His hands close on space. Santo stands frozen, heart beating so hard his ears fill with the drum of it, eyes wide enough to take in two worlds. The one where Diego climbs, and the one where he has already begun to fall. And then there is only the valley, and the fact of what happened, and a quiet that is not holy, but it makes you want to kneel anyway. Santo, Emilio says, the name caught in the soft that grief makes in a man's mouth. He edges to the rim, looks down, and does not call again. He's old enough to know when a call is prayer and when it is noise. The wind dies as if it has done its part and is tired. The crows fold themselves into small black commas on a far fence, punctuation at the end of a sentence too heavy for speech. Santo breathes. He breathes, and he doesn't want to. The air is a debt now. Every lungful is a ledger with Diego's name on it. Emilio gathers what can be gathered. Rice in a torn shawl. The sacks of salt that held their shape like men at attention. Grain that still remembers the field. He works without sound, the way surgeons work when ceremony would be an insult and speed would be a lie. Then comes the arithmetic the world makes when it wants to teach you something you should have learned while it was easy. All that was on Diego must now sit on Santo. The merchant does not add cruelty to grief. He adds weight to necessity. That is the curse of the living. We must go on, even when going on feels like betrayal. He looks into Santo's eyes. Forgive me, he says, and means it. He is not asking the mule to absolve him. He is asking to be forgiven by the one who will carry what he cannot. The second load settles onto Santo's back with a sound like a final step in a long staircase. It is more than weight, it is sentence. He staggers once, finds his feet, and endures what there is to endure. They walk, they do not talk. The road that took is the only road that offers return. And with each step, memory becomes a mirror Santo cannot put down. He remembers because the body remembers on your behalf, rain in another season, a river that ran higher than advice. Both mules placed on a narrow ford because Emilio believed in them the way you believe in an old song. Halfway through, a branch, a flood scent log, clanged into Santo's legs. He faltered. The river laughed with its white teeth. And there was Diego, coming close, shoulder to shoulder, taking Santo's weight without being asked. No speech, no drama. Just a presence and the warm, impossible fact of help. Santo remembers that day until it hurts to keep breathing. Brother, would you take one sack? The sentence returns the way a bell does in a valley, softer, but you cannot pretend you didn't hear it. The mind tries 1,000 small defenses, the rules, the fairness, the math of effort. Pride offers itself in 1,000 clever quotes, but the heart is stubborn. It has a single language, and it keeps speaking it until you either answer or go deaf from the noise of your own refusal. They come to a shoulder in the mountain where a wayside chapel keeps its distance from the road and its door open to the weather. A tile of the Virgin leans under a little arch. Someone, a stranger with tender hands, has left a sprig of rosemary on the sill, the smell of it cutting through dust and guilt like a clean blade. Emilio leads Santo into the chapel's shade. It is cool there, with the kind of cool that feels like a hand on a fevered brow. "I will rest, old friend," he says. "And you?" His voice trails. What encouragement is left that would not sound like theft? Santo stands in the dim. There is a crack running up the whitewash from floor to ceiling, a straight true line that the world could have fixed but didn't. He lowers his head and the rope slackens and touches the floor with a sound like a sigh. He doesn't know how to speak to walls or to saints. But the crack listens. Outside, the wind walks around the chapel like a watchdog, making its rounds. Far off, a bell rings once, then thinks better of it. The shadow of a vulture passes over the door, and you can feel the temperature change as it does. Emilio lights a candle. The flame trembles, grows steady, then leans whenever the door remembers it is not a door, but a mouth the wind can use. The candle burns shorter. The day burns longer. One of them will be gone before the other admits it. When they step back into the afternoon, the light has flattened to the kind you get when the sun is tired of being admired. Santo moves. His muscles speak the slow language of labor, and the path resumes its instruction. On the second ridge, the road becomes a single track etched into stone. It slides along a cliff that offers views no one wants today. The valley opens in a green bruise. Somewhere below, a hawk writes his name on the air, satisfied with the largeness of his script. They round a bend and meet what the day has kept in its pocket for this exact moment. A small goat, all ribs and urgency, is tangled in thorn at the path's edge. Beside her, a boy not yet tall enough to have his own despair pulls at the briars with hands that have never failed him until just now. There is a sack on the ground, a light one by a mule's standard, but heavier than a child's plan. The boy looks up, and whatever plea was going to come out dies when he sees the load on Santo's back. "Señor," he gasps at Emilio, "I don't want to ask, but she—" He gestures at the goat, who does not bleat. She stares the way animals stare when pain has taught them about quiet. Emilio moves to help, but the thorns are stubborn. They've been practicing possession for years. He works the vines with his knife and strings of green blood ribbon onto the rock. The boy tugs and the goat tries to help by not fighting. It is a poor kind of cooperation, but it is enough. In a moment that deserves a choir and gets only wind, the goat is free. Then another truth arrives. The sack. The boy cannot carry it and carry the goat. He turns the problem over in his careful hands and looks at Emilio the way orphans look at church doors. Santo, without waiting, steps close. He does not ask permission from a man or a saint. He kneels, a practiced gesture for a creature that does not often expect himself to do it, and bows his back to the boy's sack. The boy stares, then understands, then lifts. The weight finds Santo the way rain finds a roof, a slope he wasn't ready for, and yet. Emilio watches. Something eases in his face that had no name until just now. He tightens the extra rope as if the knot is a kind of blessing. They move together now, man, mule, boy, goat. The road notices and does not approve, but it is outvoted. Santo carries what he carries. He also carries the small miracle of the goat's thin warmth brushing his leg from time to time. He carries the boy's soft thanks whenever a stone would have made them both fall, if not for the way Santo angled his shoulder into the world. He carries the knowledge that the last ask he refused tallied itself into a death, and that there is a debt you can only pay forward because the original creditor is gone. They reach a wide bay of rock where the path releases its breath for a while. The boy nods, lips trembling with gratitude. He gathers the goat and the sack. For a second, he looks like he might give the sack back. He is ashamed to let the strong be good to him, but the world has learned to be cruel to children who hurry to be noble, and today the lesson interrupts. "Take it," Emilio says, low. "We have more strength than we deserve, and that means it is meant for others." The boy nods again, and this time he smiles. Small, but sharp enough to cut the day into before and after. He goes, the goat scissoring her thin legs, the sack bouncing. From behind, they look like two pieces of a future that can be saved. Santo stands in the silence that follows kindness. It has its own weather. Things smell different. The wind puts its tools away. Even the sun seems to stare for a second and then get back to work. They move on. The last miles into the far village are a narrow debate between light and shadow, the path plaiting itself between them. Santo's legs are hot with effort. His back sings a song in a key men don't have. But somewhere between the spine and the heart, a counter melody begins. It is not triumph. It is not the kind of relief you can brag about. It is the old tune of putting something right, and it sounds like a field being watered and like a name being spoken the way it should have been spoken the first time. By the time the first white walls of the village come up, the kind that make you narrow your eyes because they hold sunlight like a bowl holds milk, Emilio has stopped humming. He is quiet because the day has explained something to him, and he is a student who knows when to stop arguing and start listening. At the square, the olive oil merchant meets them with the usual ritual, a scale that has never once contemplated dishonesty, a measure that was true yesterday and will be true tomorrow. Rice for oil, grain for coin, salt for favor. The numbers are kind to a man who kept the appointment, even though grief wanted to annul it. They find a corner and rest. Emilio rubs Santo down with a cloth that smells like last year's soap. He works in circles, the way comfort taught him. "I am sorry," he says again, and there is more in it now, more sorrow, yes, but also an odd kind of hope, as if apology could be fertile if you plant it deep enough. He was a good friend. Santo closes his eyes. The village noise is a river. Women discussing the price of tomatoes like it's theology. Children running in patterns only they know. The slap of laundry in a tin basin. A priest laughing from the chest because someone told a joke that did not harm anybody. Night comes like a dark shawl laid over the shoulders of the day by hands that love it. Emilio leads Santo to a stable. The straw is new. A lantern hangs from a nail, drawing moths who have made peace with the way light always asks for something in return. Santo folds himself into sleep the way the tired fold into absolution. In the space between waking and whatever comes after it, Diego appears, not as a ghost to accuse, but as a memory that has remembered how to be gentle. Morning enters with the trimmed beard of a responsible guest. They set out for home. The road has changed. Of course, it hasn't. The stones are the same stones. The cliffs have kept all their bright, terrible ideas about gravity. But when you walk a path with a different heart, the path returns the compliment and looks different. On the return ridge, where the rosemary grows and the chapel keeps its watch, Emilio stops. He unties a thin cloth bundle. Inside is a small carved cross, rubbed smooth by thumbs. He sets it under the tile of the Virgin, beside yesterday's candle's ghost. "For Diego," he says. Then, after a breath, "From both of us." Santo steps forward and lowers his head in the awkward bow animals make when they are teaching themselves a human gesture. The rope goes slack and touches the stone. The world, which pretends not to believe in ceremony, pauses. The valley receives the note. They are not the only travelers today. Around the turn, a caravan approaches. 2 men, a woman, and a great donkey whose knees are arguments against further walking. The men speak in the easy Portuguese that sounds like Spanish remembered in a dream. The woman carries herself like someone who has already paid for the right to be quiet. As they pass the narrowest point, the donkey's right foreleg collapses, gently at first, and then all at once, so that the animal ends up sitting the way a dog sits, who has not been trained to impress anyone. The men curse softly, not at the animal, but at the reality that came to collect a tax they cannot afford. The woman puts a hand on the donkey's neck and hums the kind of tune that says, "Nothing can be done, but a little can be borne." Emilio speaks before the words have finished forming. "We can help," he says. He looks at Santo the way you look at a friend when you're asking them for something important, and also giving them a chance they might have prayed for. Santo kneels a second time in as many days. It is grace and it is practice. The men lift their lighter sacks onto his back. Emilio shifts his own, redistributing, measuring with his hands, with his eyes, with a heart that has learned a new mathematics. They walk in tandem, a braided procession, 2 languages braided, 2 griefs braided, and a mercy balanced atop both like a basket riding ahead that has walked this road too often to be surprised by much anymore. In the long, clean quiet that came after the fall, something had been planted. Today, it shows its first green. At the final descent, where the path unspools into the plain, the great donkey finds its feet again. He shakes his ears, embarrassed to have needed help and too honest to pretend otherwise. The woman says a kind of thanks that belongs more to the world than to any one person. The men grip Emilio's forearms, old style, the way you seal a promise you don't have words for. The caravan turns east. Emilio and Santo turn west. Home is not different, except for the part of it that is. The courtyard holds its shadows the way a mother holds secrets she will not tell, because keeping them is kinder than letting them out. The crows make their "we were here the whole time" sound. The rope is coiled, the buckets washed. On a shelf by the door sits a halter that will not be used again. Emilio touches it with the tender economy of a man who knows the weight of keepsakes. He walks to Santo and puts his forehead against the broad bone of the mule's face. Men who live without much money have to learn how to be rich in other ways. Touch is one, time is another. Today he spends both like a prince. "Tomorrow," he says, "we will take half the road and remember all of it, and if somebody asks for 1 sack," he does not finish the sentence because he does not need to. Santo breathes. He breathes, and for the first time since the rim of that terrible valley, the air feels like it belongs to the living. That night, a wind comes over the hills and combs the trees. In the dark, a bell that isn't there rings in memory, a single note, faithful as a dog. Santo dreams a dream where Diego walks ahead, not looking back, trusting that if he needs something, he will not have to ask twice. When morning arrives, quietly, as if stepping into a room where someone is sick, Emilio and Santo make their preparations. The road is the same. The world is the same. The small and stubborn goodness that makes any life bearable is also the same, but larger now because someone dared to practice it. They pass the chapel. The rosemary has withered a little, as rosemary does when it gives too much of itself away to wind and memory. The cross is still there. A candle cup holds a new wick, blessed by someone who did not sign their work. On the sill, in a neat hand, a note. For all who carry more today than they should. May another shoulder come in time. Emilio smiles. Santo flicks an ear. They start the climb. Halfway to the first switchback, there is a bend in the road no one pays attention to because it is not dangerous and not beautiful. Today a small figure waits there, a shepherd girl with a lamb that will not stand. She looks up, ready to say something practice has made difficult. Emilio raises a hand before she can begin. "We see you," he says. Santo steps forward and kneels. It is a habit now, not of submission, but of strength properly understood. In another life, on another day, this might have been the place where pride rehearsed the old speech about rules and fairness. Today, it is only the place where love does the math and says, "I have room." They lift the lamb, they lift the small sack, they lift the moment out of the ordinary and into story. And somewhere, in a valley that once used silence to say what was left to say, the wind chooses a kinder instrument. It plays through rosemary, through rope, through the little bell on Santo's collar. It plays the tune you get when a heart that refused once decides to refuse no more.